Now peasants come in all shapes and colors, and a lot got arrested in the past, 'cause the sheriff and his posse be profiling, 'cause we of the lowest social caste. So all I got to say to you flea-bitten, plague-ridden serfs so blindly acquiescent, when an angry mob is forming, what the fuck wilt thou do? Damn, it feels good to be a peasant.
It's Sunday, August 13th, 2017, in the wee hours of the morning. This is the Dissident Peasant Podcast. I'm your host, your favorite Union man deep behind enemy lines, Jeff, the Dissident Peasant. On today's show, right-wing terrorism increasing. It's awful. Minnesota, Charlottesville, I'll tell you about that. I'll also tell you on today's show how the best case scenario for the North Korea situation is probably still pretty shitty for liberal democracy. Finally, I'll talk about this article by notable Seth Rich truther Patrick Lawrence in The Nation, alleging that the DNC hack was an inside job and not perpetrated by the Russians. Folks, thanks for joining me. I'm Jeff, the Dissident Peasant. You can always check my stuff out at dissidentpeasant.com. My Twitter handle's at JeffHisDudeness. Facebook, Dissident Peasant. YouTube, Dissident Peasant. Follow me if you have time. If you want to support me, there's a page on my website. You can check it out. There's a way to give money. There's an Amazon link. But more than that, just share the site, share the show. If you enjoy it, I'll keep doing these. As I said once before, if I get to 10,000 unique views, not unique views, just 10,000 views on my channel, I'll turn a webcam on, and I'll figure out how to use video editing software. Okay, so right at the top today, we gotta talk about what just happened in Charlottesville. If you're not aware, I'll give you some of the scant deets. There was a rally in Charlottesville. It was held by a bunch of white supremacists, nutjobs, and assholes, ostensibly to protest the removal of a Confederate statue. Counter-protesters showed up, including Antifa. Fights broke out between the two groups. Some on the leftist side alleged that they were sprayed with some sort of mace, not by the cops, but by the right wing protesters there. And I think it's really culminated when a white supremacist moron drove a car into a crowd of people and killed at least one person, injured about a dozen others. I looked for the victim's name. At this time, I couldn't find any news organizations to confirm it. I did find a Twitter post that alleged to link to a GoFundMe page, and I'm not saying that Twitter posts, was lying, but sorry, I just need a bit more to go on before I say her name. But hers is really the only name that I want to say. Hers and the other victims, they're heroes. They're American heroes. They were out there protesting the fall of American democracy. They put their bodies on the line, and now they're dead. They're dead because some white-wing terrorist plowed a car into a bunch of them ISIS style. By the way, I was remarking to my wife, that's a pretty cowardly way to kill somebody. I don't like to think of myself as a real big macho man, but if you're going to get yourself into a big armored metal moving vehicle and mow a bunch of people down, it just seems to me that, killing people while enclosed in a cage of steel is not exactly courageous. Why don't you try and pull a knife on someone, man? Let's give them a shot to fight back. Maybe kick your ass. That'd be cool. But, actually, I just don't want anybody to get hurt. Nobody should pull knives on anybody. Nobody should drive cars into anyone. Not into that kind of thing. And you probably aren't either. But the perpetrator has been arrested and charged. His name was released. I didn't bother to learn it. I didn't bother to exert the mental effort it would take for me to remember his name and then write it down so I could speak it here. Because who gives a shit who that guy is? He's an asshole and a terrorist, and I hope that he enjoys the a quick and speedy trial as guaranteed by the Constitution and judged by a jury of his peers, and then goes to jail for a very long time. That's my personal hope. Just a little while ago before that, there was a bombing in Minnesota, of course. The president didn't have anything to say about of a mosque. And in Charlottesville, the president finally decided that he had to say something, and so he pulled a new one on us. Usually, when someone on the right does something really, really bad, and it's undeniable that it's bad, and nobody can really, conspiracy theorize against it or spin it away, unless you're really, really super crazy and fringy. And so, mainstream American political leaders, of which Trump is unfortunately one, he's the president of the United States. How's he not mainstream? And news commentators and other officials on the right and the center will say, well, look, both sides are bad. Both sides commit violence. That's usually the go-to play. Trump did them one better. There are apparently many sides to this issue, not just one or even two. Many sides of violence on many sides, and they should all cut it out, was the gist of his speech. That's the best we can hope for from the White House in terms of response to this attack and condemning violence. I know some people may be hesitant to attribute too much importance to presidential statements, and by and large, I would agree. But this is a modern era where communication is extremely fast and can be really widespread pretty cheaply. It's easy to get the word out on certain things if you really want to in this country with the internet and a phone system and cable television. And so the words the president speaks are heard by many, many more people than they would have been 100 years ago. Right, or 250 or 300, right? And so consequently, they have a lot more power. And when you condemn or fail to condemn right-wing violence in anything but unequivocal terms, right-wingers hear that. They hear that, and they get it. They get that you don't want to come after them. They get that you're going to do the bare minimum that you feel you have to in order to continue in office, and that's going to be the way it is. So I just wanted to point that out, that these presidential statements, it actually is pretty important, I think so, especially when you're talking about events driven by non-government actors like protest movements and political parties as far as the grassroots goes. What the president says matters, and when he can't muster the energy or the will or the presence of mind to condemn right-wing violence, he encourages it. And condemning violence on all sides is not good enough. Those people know what he's doing, and they're going to feel encouraged by it, and they're going to attack more. And that's blood on Trump's hands. So, way to go, guy. Way to go. So, main reason it's been tough to get through this week, probably for me, probably for everyone, is what's going on in Southeast Asia, particularly with North Korea. Lots of really aggressive posturing going on between North Korea and the United States and its allies. So, obviously, we're all extremely concerned about that because the North Koreans probably a nuclear power. Not sure how capable they are of delivering those weapons, but, limited nuclear war has got a non-zero chance. It's in the news again. Right. Trivia fact, I was actually born in Guam, on a naval hospital. I left when I was just a baby, so I don't have much of a connection to the place, but it's true I was born there. So, I wanted to talk about how really the best case scenario for all of this is actually still pretty terrible. Because the best case scenario is that John Kelly, H.R. McMaster, and Mattis, the Chief of Staff, National Security Advisor, and Secretary of Defense, respectively. Best case scenario, they run us through this. They are the steady hands on the ship. These three former military generals. They run the ship of state, and they get us through this crisis without war breaking out and hundreds of thousands of people dying. Because that's what would happen in South Korea once hostilities began. We don't know how capable the North Koreans are of striking any American territories or Japan necessarily with nuclear weapons, but we know they can shell the shit out of South Korea very easily. So anyway, our best case scenario is these three generals run the country for us because our current president is on vacation and too busy waging Twitter wars and watching TV, playing golf all day to be bothered with doing anything but escalating conflict around the globe. And the fact that we're going to have to rely on these three men to run us through this crisis is terrible. It's terrible for democracy. It's awful. Because in this country, the military should be viewed with a skeptical eye, and it's been an ever-increasing phenomenon. I remember reading about it in Chris Hayes' book, Twilight of the Elites, that faith in law enforcement and the military as institutions continues to go up as faith in Congress and political leaders goes down consistently no matter who's in charge, which means that we as a society are beginning to worship men with guns and power and not men whom we elect. And that's dangerous for a democracy. It defeats the whole standard conceit of electing our own leaders and not being ruled just by a will to power and whoever has the most men and guns. We did that as a species. We've done that as a species. We continue to do that as a species. We know how it works out. Not well. Democracy, for all its flaws, doesn't have that. John Kelly was confirmed 88-11 by the United States Senate. Jim Mattis was confirmed 98-1 by the United States Senate. Kelly's position, of course, currently is Chief of Staff, but that vote was for his head of Homeland Security confirmation. Even the United States Senate is prone to this. It's dangerous. I wish it would stop. I don't know what to do about it. Just keep this idea alive, folks. Keep this idea alive. I know we all view political leaders with great disdain. We think they're all liars and useless. And they deserve to be held accountable. But it's also important to recognize that politics can and still is sometimes a noble profession. It really is. It can be if it's devoted to public service. The majority of our problems stem from the fact that large swaths of this country no longer believe in that, because public service means helping people they don't like. But that's a conversation for another day. Finally, I wanted to talk about this new article in The Nation that's come out casting or attempting to cast some doubt on the consensus of the United States government and its intelligence agencies that the Russians were responsible for the hack on the Democratic National Committee for the campaign, for the election in November. It was published in The Nation, which is a magazine and website that I like a lot. I usually dig a lot of what they put out. I think it's fine stuff, and they have good reporters over there and good columnists. But this piece is not rigorous. It is not proof of anything, and it's pretty elaborate throat clearing and rhetoric, but there's not a lot of there. So if you read through it, you'll discover quickly that after a few hundred words of bullshit setting things up, that the author claims to be in contact with someone anonymous who claims to have analyzed the data transfer speeds of material that was moved or copied during the DNC hack. And it approached speeds that were far too fast to really be attainable by almost any conventional technology that people employ. Certainly anything that you would put in your home would be overkill. Certainly anything, the only thing that would approach it is fiber. Frankly, the speed they're talking about in the 20s of megabytes. Not bits. Bits usually measure transfer rates, but the guy said bytes. Byte is 8 bits. In any case, this article is bullshit. That's what I'm leading up to. This article's bullshit. It's total nonsense. It is simply clickbait for a large number of people on the left who don't want to accept, for whatever reason, that Russia was responsible for hacking and the DNC and meddling in the election with well-timed leaks designed to help Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. I don't know why exactly. I think the reasons are probably pretty varied. There are a few on the left out there who are running successful YouTube channels. They have zeroed in on a particular audience set, and in a time like this where the left is really completely out of power and discredited, at least in our political institutions, it's easy to fall into the trap of nothing you do makes any difference, and everything is bad, and both sides are terrible, and Green New Deal escapism is your only option. Obviously, it should be said that I don't feel like Green New Deal-ism is your only option. I've actually always thought it was pretty simple. Vote for the Democrats, right? Get involved in the primary. And then at the end of the primary, vote for the Democrat. In 99 out of 100 cases. It really is that easy. Voting is that easy. One other reason is, I don't know what it is exactly, but the left has always had a blind spot when it comes to Russia in a lot of places. They just tend to view the Russians as far more sympathetic, perhaps, than they really should be. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it just stems from a liberal's overarching sense of fairness that gets them into trouble a lot of times. But in any case, the point is that people who are falling for this need to look around them and see who their allies are. Because once you get out of the echo chamber, your allies are Trump voters and Russian government officials. Both groups would love for you to believe that the Russian government had nothing to do with any meddling in the election, that their influence is overblown over it, and that the fault is with the Democratic Party, and you should fight it and abandon it. Weaken democratic institutions that way. Because never forget, the Democrats are more popular. Their ideas are more popular. More people voted for them. They are winning in a certain sense, right? If this were a more fair election system, they would be winning. So, but those people need to look around and see who their allies are and start to ask themselves, how did they come to be surrounded by such disreputable company? I think maybe if they ask themselves that question, there's a chance that some of them might come back over to our side. Our side that could, I would define as holding in parallel two beliefs. One, the Russians tried to meddle in the election and hurt Hillary Clinton's chances and help Donald Trump's chances. Two, the Democratic Party, especially on a national level, is in serious need of reform and work. Hillary Clinton had no business losing to a clown like Donald Trump. That's it. It's that easy. You can believe both those things at once. I don't understand why some people can't or won't. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's today's show. Somewhat abbreviated today. Folks, you can always follow me at the website, dissidentpeasant.com. That's headquarters for all things dissident and peasant related. No other peasants are allowed, and no acquiescent individuals welcome, please. My Twitter handle is at JeffHisStudent. Check me out on Facebook, Dissident Peasant. YouTube page is Dissident Peasant. Folks, have a good week. Stay dissident, serfs.
This is for Bernie. He's the only candidate who makes any sense. From the country to the top, Police and buses held us down. But I understand when the ground was laid. Bloody tough on union made. Well, then the king woke up one morning, said all the people should be better paid. No! Things were bad, things got changed. Bloody tough on union made. Bloody tough on union made. One long struggle day by day. That's how we got to be this way. Bloody tough on union made. We're still up to live like humans. Locked up, beat man to fame. No one said it was gonna be easy. Bloody tough on union made.
Cowards cringe and traitors sneer. That class won't ever happen here. But don't forget as the future fades. Plenty tough on union made. Well,
Plenty tough on union made. One long struggle day by day. That's how we got to be this way. Plenty tough on union made.